Hi everyone, it's Denise Weniker, and here we are. It's Thursday, and we have another wonderful speaker to present to you guys tonight. So, let me introduce to you Tim Sheridan from Star Carpets, and a little bit about him. He is the brand ambassador for Star Carpets with 26 years of experience, oh my God, in the design and the sales industry. He's achieved $70 million in sales, holy moly, by creating unique carpet solutions for various residential projects. I think you have to work for me. That's like 70 million. That's pretty darn good. Oh my God. He holds degrees from Parsons, the Decorative Arts School at the Louvre, as well as an economics degree from the University of Chicago. So he's certainly invaluable to have us here to be teaching us about rugs and all the things that you need to know about beautiful rugs. And so happy that you're joining us, happy that you guys are with us. And take it away, Tim.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's so good to be here.
All right, yeah.
We'll get that pesky economics degree out of the way first, because one of the reasons, the general focus and the goal for this thing is for people not to become rug experts, and I will not bore you with terrible little detail, but so that you'll know when someone's talking about a rug, if they're sort of on track, or if you're being bamboozled, or if they're carefully skipping around something that you know you've heard about before, so you can help your client make a judgment, because one of the things that has made me successful in carpet sales is that economics degree and realizing you have to show cost benefit and you have to add value. The rug may be pretty, but you're adding the value that makes somebody want it more. It's basically the person who says at the mixer, you two should meet. You're perfect for each other. So you have to tell somebody why a rug is perfect. And we're talking about handmade rugs. Most of us live with machine-made rugs these days, but there are a lot of handmade rugs, and the fact that we live in a global society means that we can use less expensive resources around the globe, and so hand is back in business. And welcome. It's presented by, that's me, but it's with all of you, so we all would be down here. Okay, what is a carpet or a rug? It is a 3D, this was written by a wonderfully intellectual CEO of Stark who envisions everything in technical terms, so I sort of try and make it down. But to him, it is true. It is a 3D matrix of dots. It has height, because there's actually texture, and it has, of course, width and length. But it also has color and tone. There's our picture to show us height. It has all sorts of stuff, and this, by the way, is a real rug.
Wow.
They make these things. You can. It's sort of a fad right now in the Mideast to make these melted rugs. But
is that flat, or is it actually vertical and then goes flat?
It could be flat. You can see little ripples over here. It's built to be absolutely flat.
Okay.
It's just they hang them to get the optical effect of it looking like it's puddling on the floor is too much for anybody. It just makes the thing so. You can find them on the internet. But it's a wonderful way of sort of blending traditional and modern. But we have all sorts of stuff in this that we'll hear about later. But each of these things is a handmade rug, and then somebody's nice little happy dog. Okay. It is intimidating. I thought I was going to be an expert in Oriental rugs, and I took classes, and you went off and you heard about the most arcane stuff, and you were bored in 5 minutes. And you could never tell the patterns apart, so I'm going to encourage you not to worry about the names of the rugs. They are all named after regions where they were made. But any particular region could make flowers or squares or something like that. It takes an expert. Let the expert tell you what it is. Now, are we allowed to call them Oriental rugs? This is a big deal. Yes, we are allowed to call them Oriental rugs, because orient is like to orient yourself. It merely means where the sun is. So if something is oriental, it is towards the sun. So as I tell people, Manhattan, we are the Oriental people for New Jersey. So there is nothing race-based, there is anything like that about it. It just merely means where the sun rises, over there. And it's all based on Rome, so that the sun doesn't rise, apparently, in anything west of Rome, so they call those Occidental rugs. But in fact, the fact is these are Oriental rugs. You can call them that, and it's just an easy way, because the fact is we all know what it means colloquially, and at least it doesn't carry a negative connotation. We're going to go through the historical origin. We're going to go through materials. We're going to talk about a highly collaborative, which there's a lot of people involved in this. And we've got to overcome all the dramas of making it, because there's distances, languages, and expectations. And what do we have? Yeah, it's all pretty basic. Okay. So over here we have, let's just start with this. Do you want a handmade rug versus a machine-made rug? And I picked one where the machine-made rug was trying to look like a handmade rug. But the fact is a machine only can do what it needs to do unless it totally breaks down. But you're just going to get the same thing over and over and over again. And what the human eye wants is variation. We're about to find, we are trained to hunt for it. It's why your eye is automatically attracted to, frankly, triple processed hair versus single flat color. It's why we like fall leaves, why we like snowflakes, why we like sunsets, sunrises, whatever it is. Why apparently we like leaves that have been chewed by little beasties, because they're all different. And they all have a sense of specialness, which is the other thing. We want to be able to identify it, we want to be able to judge it, and we want to be able to get what we want out of it, the better one. This thing's fun because it just shows, one of the things about a handmade rug is that people just sort of change their mind during it. It's not, there's various ways to make, you can try and make a perfect thing from a drawing, but there's also these sort of rugs, which are tribal rugs, and they would just hand them to someone and say, do something. It's how all the patterns were made, and it's how any knotter starts, and they do some pretty amazing stuff. I mean, that's pretty bad. It's, you know, each section of itself is sort of messed up. But if you look at it as a whole, it's a piece of art. Okay. This one you actually want to learn about. So everyone wants to know what's the parts of a rug. And we can make this very complex and do this. This is what we used to have, and no one understood it. And we went and found this fabulous photograph here, and it's great, which is, so there are things called warps, and those strings, they go up and down. We're going to talk about why. And there are things called wefts, and that's what the double things are. And you will constantly have someone tell you about a weft-faced pattern, which doesn't mean much, or a warp-faced pattern, which doesn't mean much, until you try and change it. So you say, I want to make this yellow or something. Then you have to know it. The other thing is in some things, they have done something with part of this rug, and you need to know it for that reason. But here's the easy way to remember. When they talk about a warp, the last part of the word is basically as a harp. So you think about a warp and a harp because it's the strings going up and down. And when you think about wefts, you think about lefts. So they go left to right. It's a very nice, easy way to talk about them. Then when you have a knot, which is not really a knot, it is a knot like this, we're going to see later. It's really twists. It's not, nothing crosses and locks. They do them over 2 strings, and then they change them really rope up so it sort of keeps on pulling and pushing. But it is just, it's a twist. And what else do we have out here? That's it. The warps do end in the serging, in the fringe. So if you have a rug with a fringe, unless it's a terrible rug where someone sewed on some stuff that they think looks like fringe, it really should be this stuff coming out of the rug. So there are some rugs, I don't have one here, but where the warp is wool. There are some Samarkands are done that way, where the warp is wool and it sticks out the end. So we are going to talk about different types of knots, and that's the next thing, and that's okay. The answer is yes, but no. These are a really neat thing, and this is the Ashley Starr collection, which I will shamelessly plug because it is a attainable luxury, and you get a look and a quality for a more sensible price point. For many people, it's an entry-level price point. And Ashley has done an amazing job of bringing a fresh, completely fresh, it's a unique look to Stark. That gives us a really sort of unique thing. But what Maria has brought this for is on the back, you can see that what they did was they grabbed a bunch of warps and they pulled them together to make these little pigtails.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a beautiful one because most of the time people fake this by having a normal rug and then they get little pigtails that they've made and they sew them on. So I was worried when I got this that this was going to be one of those. No, it is not. So here's show and tell for one, and I did not bring that one, so thank you. Okay, now you see me be a dancer. You actually, so I'll show you in a second. You need to know, you should know the difference between Persian and Turkish knots. And the easiest way to show it is to use this simple and this simple and this simple. And a Turkish knot, which we're going to do this whole thing in, Turkish knots are these. They're totally, they look the same, but there's a space between them. This, you can see, you always have a tuft. The tufts, 1, 2, 3, 4, all pretty level. So you end up with a velvet surface like this rug. This is not a quality thing. This is just a stylistic thing. Then, over here, you have these, and there's this gap in the middle. And that's why you can see every single little knot in this one. Now, I can make them small. This is a very small version of it. But it still is a different thing than a velvet. Mm-hmm. That, if it was a hand-knotted rug, would be a Persian knot. It's a smooth thing. I don't have an alliterative way to remember Turkish versus Persian, but unless you can just remember Turkish nut rugs have this little gap in them. And so the mnemonic way of doing it is that the Persians dance like this. That's their little knot, my arms. And the Turkish dance like this. So, but you'll go to a store and somebody say, oh, this is a very fabulous rug. This one, in fact, is a Turkish knot. That doesn't mean much because there are more better and less Turkish knots, and there are better and less Persian knots. The fancier rugs, the finer rugs, the tighter designs have to be Persian. Mm. It helps to remember that because all those rugs came from Persia, but that's the big deal with learning the knots. There's your first big thing you can walk away from because you go into the store, that's the first thing they're going to say, oh, this Persian rug. Because they no, actually, that's a new shack. That's Turkish. Then they're like, oops, I guess I better learn something. Okay, then we have Tibetan rugs. I'm going to show you a Tibetan rug. Here is one. We have many, but this is, here's another one. See how very different they are. But these are not made with individual knots. They are made, and whether you want to call them a knot is really sort of a questionable thing. These are basically, you take a knitting needle, and you run a knitting needle in front, and you just keep on going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and eventually you clip it. So you can do a very rapid rug, if it's solid, using this knot style. In fact, as this little star thing shows, we can change it and do all sorts of stuff. But I probably wouldn't want to do your dress or your coat in this knot. I would want to do it in the Persian knots or the Turkish knots. Tibetan rugs are made to be smooth, fast. Those are the biggest advantages.
And are they made in Tibet?
They are made by the Tibet people in Nepal.
That's true.
They are actually also made in Tibet because my parents did minority peoples of China, and you can go to Tibet under those circumstances, and there are rugs there, but most of the Tibetan people, actually, where the rug experts fled.
Yeah.
Are they mostly like an ombre design?
We're going to get to one that's like that. No, in fact, if you go to see traditional rugs, they have flattened tigers on them. They have they're very design oriented because it was the only textile really you could have that was patterned.
Mm-hmm.
Tibetan textiles are flats and they would cut them up and make patchworks out of them.
Mm-hmm.
But a rug allowed them to do true pattern. So they glorified it. And the other thing to know about them is it's their only furniture. You would be, if this was a Nepalese house, even if it's the Wangchuk's house, the fanciest houses out there, it would be essentially that sofa would have those, it would be just covered in rugs. They upholster in rugs.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tight enough weave, it's a soft enough weave. And they're beautiful. The colors are not chic to us right now, but they will be again. Because the warm palette's coming back, if you don't know this. Gray does not exist at Restoration Hardware anymore. Total shocker. So, then we're going to talk about flat weaves. This is the most basic weave. This is, if you're my age, you remember having a little square thing with little pokey-uppy things and you made pot holders in it.
Mm-hmm.
And you put the little rubber bands over it and went back and forth. That is a flat weave. Now, let's see what you can do that makes it not look like a flat weave. Well, let's go extreme. This is a flat weave.
Wow.
All this thing is strings that go this way and yarns that go this way. They just stop and start them. But it is a version of that.
Oh, really? And how can you tell from the back? How can you
Sort
tell?
of. In 1 second, because
Okay.
this is another one. Just what tells you it is a flat weave. One, it's called a flat weave because you're dealing with the flat side of the yarn. It's there's no pile. There's nothing come up and down. And the other thing is that there is no yarn separated from the backing. And if we want to be really technical, I think am I still on the camera? A rug, in technical terms, requires being a flat weave with something stuck to it, through it. That's what made a rug. Otherwise, it's just a textile. So in fact, this is a textile, but you put it on the floor, but in fact they aren't. We consider them this. But ultimately, the easiest way to tell is that there's nothing to dig through if you're looking at it. Now, the most magical thing about the one you're holding right now is that you can pour undiluted bleach on this thing. It is absolutely amazing. This is our Stark Performance acrylic, and we'll get into that later. CEUs do not have proprietary information in them, but the fact is it's very easy to say that acrylic cannot be stained. And basically you can bleach out anything that sits on them because bleach affects that, and the work is still perfect. But that's a flat weave. And I did it, there's our extremes. It's that major of a difference. In another course, we'll talk about how they developed rugs in France and why that thing came after that thing and is the first rugs in the West, but not today. Okay, then we have sumac weaves. Sumac is a rug because there's your little orphan wefts, and they plate over it. And it's a plated stitch that's plated on one side, but it's flat on the other. And people do it for texture.
What do you mean by plated?
Braided.
Braided.
Looks like a braid.
Okay.
I'm going to do it over here so they can see. Okay, if you look at this, you can see that it's sort of a braided design. The reason somebody chose that for this is it would get really boring if it was just white back there. So somebody went to the effort of choosing this. Here's one where we did a mixture of two colors of it, and we reversed it because the funny thing is if you didn't like the plates, you can put it upside down and it's magically flat. And when I started at Stark Carpet, we had a whole group of rugs called the Starmac rugs. And the market said to us, we don't like the plated things. So Stark had all the ends reversed and it sold them upside down.
Are they harder to clean like that?
Not at all.
No?
This one might be harder to clean because I bet it's linen. Yeah, it's linen and cotton. So the easiest way to talk about cleaning is try to think about it as your textiles at home, your clothing. Linen takes color beautifully. Creases beautifully. Cleans. Cotton, amazing whites. Cleans, very soft. Then we cotton bathroom mats for all of it out of it. Wool is the strongest. It has natural lanolins in it. Anybody, I'm sure none of us have ever gone a day without washing our hair, but the fact is our neighbors may not have washed their hair, and you notice that when they finally wash it, it suddenly magically comes back out again. Wool is like that. It lofts itself when it's cleaned. And if you throw a bucket of paint at a sheep, it is not red 3 months later. It's just the natural oils that are in hair help clean it, and help resist things. So that's sort of the quick and dirty on cleaning. But we at Stark say, treat your clothes the way you would, treat your rugs like you would treat your clothes. If you have beautiful clothes, you send them to a professional cleaner. Beautiful rugs, don't go to the store and buy Resolve. Call a real professional guy. So, anyway, this is fun because we reversed it. This is 2 versions of sumac, and it is plated as a background and upside down as the white. Okay, I want the other way around. I want little needle points as the back and plated as the front. So as a design thing for us, it's a very critical added texture. It's a weave that wasn't used at all because you see that black rug, that's what they looked like until about 15 years ago. And it had a place, some, but it was not a heavily used weave. And the kind of artists like Stark's product development group said, hey, let's take these things and let's do something else with it, which is what we as designers do.
What country would these be made in?
India, Nepal, India. A quick thing on all that is in the day, this is 100 years ago, sort of before the 20th century mixed all the countries up and mixed them together, each country made its own rugs. There were Turkish rugs from Turkey, there were Egyptian rugs from Egypt, there were Moroccan rugs from Morocco, and then things happened, like the Arab Spring pretty much did in Egyptian rugs. In the 90s, we had hundreds, thousands of Egyptian rugs. Arab Spring wiped it out. The Moroccans make beautiful rugs, and you go to Morocco and you're gonna get a real Moroccan rug. But if you want a 25 by 30 for Brad Pitt's Malibu house, that comes from Turkey, because that's where they have those looms. So design is no longer related to a cultural group. It stems from a cultural group. It is of the cultural group, but it hasn't been appropriated. Well, it has been sort of appropriated, like when we took that sumac weave and used it as a texture instead of as a pattern. But to them, this used to say us. We are the people who do sumac rugs. It's sort of like we are the blondes. There's lots of blondes out there now. We get to do what we want. Okay, here is the world's easiest type of rug. You want to learn about these because you don't have to worry how many colors, nothing. You can do anything, high, low, any fiber, any color, whatever you want. This is, in a very informal way, I'm going to call them the paint by numbers rugs. You take a canvas, you draw the pattern on it, you take the product you're going to stick through it, and I say the product because it could be shoelace, which is right there, or it could be jute, which is right there, or it could be wool, which is up here, and you tuck through it, and you make your pattern, you fill the little spaces. Now, this is all the way it was done 300 or 400 years ago, because right now it's being done with basically a DeWalt percussion drill with a crochet hook at the end of it.
You see it on Instagram.
Yeah.
People creating that.
Yeah, it's amazing. There's,
Yeah.
but this is how they used to be made. It's kind of wild. And you can do curves. Now, we're going to stop for a second because this is a true savonnerie. Not that I'm trying to drag in French rugs, but We just happen to have the same thing twice, so I used it. There is a hand-knotted Savonnerie rug. Now, we talked about Persian knots and Turkish knots. What do you call a French knot? Well, all they did was copy Turkish rugs, so it's a Turkish knot. It's the exact same thing. But what's fun is, this one had all sorts of people nodding, and you have to wait and go slowly, slowly. This one, you have a giant canvas. You can have your sister over there, your brother over there, your mother over here, your father over here, and you can make the rug really fast. And one of the best things is see the curve here? See how it's serrated? You're trying to knock knots around on a curve, essentially on a crossword puzzle. Because this is a grid. Remember Chad's 3D grid? Well, that whole thing goes out the window when you get to these guys. This is just take that drill and paint with it. And I should have called it tufting gum. It's a nicer name. But you can see the curves are absolutely perfect. There's no serration. So you can do that. This one happens to be in silk. But one of the things you can do is see what the difference in colors does. Do you want, I mean, this one tried to be pretty much dead level. All they really did was change the background of there to be light. And they fixed this thing up with a darker relief to it. But it is, yep, there in the video. Oh, and they have, okay, so I can tell you which era this comes from. This is a Louis XVI Savonnerie, only because of the trumpet. You did not have those collections of trumpets in earlier ones. That has nothing to do with how to make a handmade rug, so we'll skip off that. But it does talk to you about curves and the fact that this sample probably took 65 days to make, even though they rushed it and it's just a tiny little sample. This thing might have taken 3 shifts. But really, if you're designing for your client or for you, pick hand tufting. I mean, there's that other thing called budget and all that business. But hand tufting is just, it's a great, your world's your oyster. Okay, then, in the non-proprietary thing, so I have to say a company, like me, our company, developed a thing that's halfway between a knot and the Tibetan knot on that long wire. And it's called this fika knot. Well, it's called a dragon knot someplace. But it cuts the amount of wool in by 40% or something like that, because you're basically knocking over all the knots. So you get to walk on both the knot and the pile out of it. And I don't think this is a fika. Yes, it is. Okay. So you see how you have the knot beside it and the yarn sticking up? This means that you get to have what could have been just the tuft sticking up, which is this much. Voila, is this much. So guess what? Your rug has half the wool, half the price.
And lighter.
And lighter. Folds beautifully. I mean, airfare still costs what airfare does, but you can, yeah, you pick up these guys, pick up this, big difference in weight. Now, you cannot take that lovely knot and make this, because, remember that knitting needle with the line over it? You'd have to change that every knot. It doesn't make sense. So part of what you're gonna do when you choose a rug is find one that makes sense. How do we value and engineer a concept into the production to balance production and cost? And that is like this. It's like, you want your dining room lacquered. Do we do it with the fabulous person on Park Avenue? Do we do this with lacquered paper? But figure out what you want, and that's what people like me and Maria and the people at our competitors all do, better or worse, is direct you to the right thing for what you want. Hopefully you find it right on the floor, and that's the real reason about Stark is we have 28 showrooms, we have all those rugs out there. Hopefully you have what you want right now. Okay. These are concepts at this point. The world has changed so much in the last 10 years. It's important to know when I give you a time frame, no one is lying. We are trying our hardest to predict the future, but we don't know what the rain's going to be like in that country, or if there's going to be political upheaval, or if Hyatt is going to order 457 9x12 rugs next week. And we try to keep our rugs made at the mill that the sample was made at, because you can't just send a sample to somebody else. They got to invent the color, they got to invent the weave. It's never exactly the same. We show it to you and you say, why can't you make it match? Well, I can make it match if you wait for factory X to be done with their 457 rugs, which means you're going to be about 90 years old. So we come up with all these things. And it is also important to know that with very minimal exceptions, and I mean minimal because I've done it, the sample is not done with the yarn that your rug will be made from. Because no one dyes up a whole rug to make a 2x2 sample. Right. So somebody has to re-dye those colors. So they are never going to match. You go and, well, I used to have triple processed hair so I could say it, make fun of myself. But the fact is if you have highlights, let's say, they're going to be different each time. You're going to look great each time, but you can't stick the picture of your head last week next to the picture of your head this week and have them exactly match. Same thing with rugs. It's beautiful. It's great. The other one is, every once in a while we get to deal with celebrities, and Don Henley from the Eagles came in one day. And no one knew who he was at Stark, which was great, and I was an assistant, so I said, I'll go out and help. And we started talking about this, and I said, well, yes, there's a design, and you send it off someplace, and they make it. But they make it under the understandings, because you're not standing there. He said, oh, no, I understand this. I write a song, we go into the studio, Glenn Fry takes a hold of it, does something to my song. It's not the one I wrote, but it's really good. And so that's what these rugs are.
Great analogy. Yeah.
Okay, you go, fibers. Now, someone stole all my yarn, so I used to have all little bits of yarn for this, but the fact is I also made nice enough pictures so we can figure this out. Why do you want wool? It's durable. Remember we talked about that? It's stronger. Wool blankets, wool trousers. Think of where you use wool. It's always stronger than whatever the other fiber was. The original color is cream to natural to brown. It is a hair. It comes from all those lovely people. The whitest white is from New Zealand, but you don't have to know too much about that. We have to know. Maria and I have to worry about this tremendously. And fiber protein and lanolin lightly affect color match. It's a little more than lightly. The fact is that it yellows over time, but it's what you want. Because if you strip all the lanolin out, which is what bleaching a white does, you essentially have the kind of hair that nobody wants. It's that dry, brittle stuff and anything. So wool you don't want to really push to white. That's why we're going to tell you to put silk in. We're going to put you to put nylon in. We're going to get something that lusters catches the white. Silk, cleanable with water. Now, obviously, whoever wrote this was alive in 1850, because anybody today cleans it with dry cleaning fluid. But whatever. The color is cream. It's true. And I had to fix this one. Sorry, silk is not silk. We'll go through this really quick. Silk-like substitutes, great. Anything that is a name and silk is not silk. The only thing that is silk is silk. You could say Chinese silk versus Indian silk because it's slightly different because the mulberry trees are a little bit different. But banana silk, bamboo silk, tencel, rayon, mulberry silk, all these things are artificial. They are pulped from wood, so there's a natural component. And the cleanability depends on what they're pulled from. Banana silk is pumped from bananas. Bamboo silk is pumped from bamboo. Tencel is pumped from eucalyptus leaves, so the koala bears hate it. But it is the most cleanable one. That's the great thing about Tencel. It's not 100% cleanable, it is the most cleanable. And sari silk is made from actual viscose, which is sawdust. And that's the one we don't like. But sari silk has those amazing colors. If you've ever seen sari silk as a product, it is like somebody threw colored glitter in the most beautiful colors out there. It's like this thing mixed up. But this is all about luster. This is about, well, here we go, raw, dirty, greasy sheep's wool, which is true. That's about what it looks like. But you want it to look like this. What processes do we have to go through? You have to separate out by the color. Horrible task. You have to card it. And then you eventually have to spin it.
Question.
Please.
Sari silk can or cannot be dyed to match?
Dyed to match what?
If you want those colors.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know the answer to this, but I can answer, my job is to answer pretty much anything. Sari silk.
And
Ever
what
looked
is
at,
that? What is that? What is sari silk?
ever looked at, you ever gone to the lake, you parked your boat, Maria will not believe this analogy, but I speak in analogies. Go to the boat, park the boat, you look behind the boat where the engine is, and there's gasoline on the water, and all those beautiful colors are there. Sari silk is like that. It is the most intense green with the most intense pink with the most intense blue. But each of those colors is dyed individually. Each of them reflects off each other. This thing is a melange. There's generally an overall color. Like there'll be generally lime green, but there'll be pink and blue and orange and black and bright yellow in it. You can't, absolutely. Even if you had the same person do it, it will vary throughout the rug because you're mixing. Somebody's grabbing from the bin. And it's important to remember that people always want the look of hand somehow perfect still. You just want to say, this is like, you know, your Ferrari that magically can airlift a plane. No, you get a sports car, you get a plane, you get a freight lifter. Sari silk is a very special deal, and you have to want it, and hopefully your salesperson tells you, hey, here's the great things about sari silk. It's made out of that, not the best viscose, but it's not white, so what do you care if it gets a little bit funky when it gets wet? You want to buy the one you're looking at if you're really crazed about this. If you're not really crazed about it, I would say, if you can deal with, here it is here it is here, yeah, these seem to be the same. You're a great person for making a rug. If you're a person who says, this one is the right red, or the person who came to me famously one day and said, Tim, you have the wrong rose. I want summer morning in June, not July. Okay, let's do twisting. So any yarn can be spun. The question is, how much do you spin it? And I never had a good example of these super over twists. You do this thing, but I magically found one. So we have this guy here. This is amazing. These are geometric rugs Stark makes. These have that sumac in them. They have solids. They have ombres. They have ombres that go the wrong way. This is a technological brag. Nobody can do this. Anybody can do an ombre this way. It's impossible to do one this way, and we did it. But down here on the corner is over twisted yarn. This guy here. They just took the yarn. You ever twist a rubber band and suddenly it loops on itself and the whole thing turns? This is exactly what they're doing. It makes it incredibly strong. This you could probably put in an airport. It's so strong.
Wow, that's awesome. Touch all the different fibers. It's
But,
really
yeah.
very interesting.
It's really
Different
interesting what
parts
these
of
things
the-
are.
Wow, it's different textures.
Yes. Yeah, it is. The woman who designed these, I will do a shameless plug for her, does amazing work. And she got some way to say, I mean, really, it may not mean much to anybody else, but to people in our industry, to have this ombres going perpendicular to each other is a sort of earth-stopping thing. I'm trying to think of something else. It's sort of like a ballet star who does 27 fouettes. To us, it's just turns, but to them, no one does more than 4.
Where's it made?
That particular one, this is made in India, I'm pretty sure. Let's see what it says in the back. Oh, good. It's made in Nepal. What's the difference? What's the difference, and why did I say, oh, good? Nepal has a group of artisans, and they are artisans. They still associate the rugs with a spiritual component. And India wants to copy it, and it's a mechanical version of the same thing. So everything's a little shaved back from the spirit. It's not bad, but it's sort of like, here's the original singer, and then here's the cover. And I can't really think of one, but here's Whitney Houston singing it, and here is the girl down the street. Doing a great job, but it's not quite the same thing. Indian rugs are amazing for price and availability. The Ashley Stark collection, I believe fully in the product. It's a different product. If you get something that's sort of magical, there's a sense of magic in the back. You can pretty much guess it came from Nepal. These things are right there. There was just an awful thing where people ran across the border and then they chased them out because they have their immigration issues over there too. But fancier rugs are coming from Nepal. Oh, and the company that happens to be giving this lecture, by the way, just so you know, is the second largest exporter of rugs from Nepal. So, of all the rugs in the world, from Tibet, Nepal, Stark is number 2. And if you add us with number 1, who we partner with, then we're really big. So, if you come to us for those rugs, it's pretty good. Next. This you do not need to learn about. It's very fun and it's fabulous. There will be no test, but it just basically says the more you twist it, the harder it is. Okay, this is important because I gave this lecture at Stark and somebody who had been there for 15 years said, what is applied yarn? And I said, okay, you take one yarn and you spin it. You may end up with this thing. You take it and you spin it a little tighter, it gets that thing. Then you take it and you spin it with 2 of them. And you get sort of, eventually you're going to get that one, which is what we all call rope. Rope is a 3-ply. They twist it one way, and then they twist it with the other one this way, so it self-locks. That's why rope is so strong, it self-locks itself. Well, gosh darn it, if you don't think that that's going to hold your rug together 55 times better. Now we have this lovely little group of palms here that I grabbed. And some of these are thin denier, which is your word for the day. That means the thickness of yarn, D-E-R-N-I-E-R. But you'll see in the back, that's a single ply. That's a single ply. This is a very tight plied yarn. These are bigger plied yarns. There's a reason to use both of them. The Ashley Stark rugs, which is down here, famously use barely spun wool. It helps to keep the price point down. It leaves it thick. It also means your Dyson's going to suck some more wool out of it than it does, but it's a great rug. And if I did it in plied yarn, you wouldn't like the rug. So that's the other thing, is to realize, okay, I really love Carolyn Bassett's Calvin Klein wedding dress. I think I'll go garden in it. No. You pick the yarn that goes with the rug you want. There's plied yarn. There's plied yarn. This is me on my desk, and this is each color trying to show what it looks like as a single ply and a multiple ply yarn. Other than that, it's not that exciting. Okay. What beautiful irregularities do hand-weaving rugs have? Well, they have every irregularity that happens that you would understand if you had to do anything all day long, which is somebody calls, you have a daydream, you're really mad, whatever happens, there's irregularities. And I could come up with a million reasons, but that's really the basic of it. And then there's this irregularity, which is that the nature of rugs is we are not NASA. This is, stuff happens in a room. Everyone's trying to contain costs. It's a little chaotic, and some really beautiful stuff comes out of it. Okay, this is an amazing picture taken by a woman who runs Stark's import department, and she's a photographer, and I love, love, love this picture because it is both the oldest things about rug and the brand newest things about it. Because all these guys are doing, and it will get sexist for a while because in India only men do weaving. Other places all the women do it, so it balances out. But the fact is this is just a really interesting, it's shot beautifully, the sets of grays are beautiful. But it's talking to you about how to do dip dyeing, and this is what we're heading into. So. Okay, vegetable dyeing. I used to think this was a joke. It's not a joke. They do make it out of vegetables. They do not make it out of carrots and pears. They make it out of mordants, which is a nice word for mud. They make it out of ores. They make it out of barks. But they are natural products. And as a natural product, their saturation is going to vary. It's that whole thing. Wool varies. I mean, I always say different sheep, different grass, different summer, different heat. But there you go. It's seasonal harvesting is going to get it. It's going to vary. Vegetable dyes. Then there's fake vegetable dyes, which is you can sort of spot them because it's going to be more level. But the fact is then coming up with pretty pictures of ugly dyeing of synthetics was a little bit rough, but we did it. But because you're dealing with a consistent product, it always comes out the same clear way. You're sticking the 5 same chemicals in it. It really matches. Dye lot used to be a big deal. It's not even a big deal these days anymore, even in wool. But it doesn't matter in synthetic. You really have to have a really messed up person to have any problems with variations in synthetics. They don't vary. Okay, do you want to have flat dyeing? Everything comes out? Or do you want to have this thing, which is basically like all the dyes seep down to the bottom? And this is how your ombre rug is going to happen because we're about to see one in a second. There's another kind of this, which you'll hear in the industry called space dyeing, which is not done this way. It is actually printed onto the thing in spaces. We won't talk about that one too much. No. Why are you not doing this?
What does a brash
There we go.
mean?
We're gonna get there.
Okay.
Did I just miss something? I think I just missed a slide. Nope. Okay, so dye methods, yeah. Boom! Okay. The honest answer, because I go back to these things where everyone explains that a brush is named because a brush was used to paint. I don't know where someone came up with that one. It's like priceless. And you and I know the person who told me this, and they might be in Morristown. When these things were made, most of these rugs, they're small. They're done on a 3-point loom that's dragged behind the goat as you go over the hills. I mean, we're not making any jokes here. There's village rugs, and then there are whatever you want to call non-village rugs. They made up the yarn that night, and they made it up with whatever town they went through. And if this rug, you do not find rugs really before 1860 anymore. They're pretty much dead. If you got to the 1860s, you suddenly got the first of chemical dyes. And they would grab the chemical brown because it looked the same to them. And then this is how you get this. That whole rug was that color. The other colors washed out of the wool. But this chemical dye sat there forever and ever. Then there are these kinds of brushes. This just means it's a different plant. It's one of those things. Did you crush 3 cochineal bugs to make the color, or did you crush 2? And no one worried about that too much then. That's pretty normal brush. These are not because someone stuck them in a window and it faded. They are not because someone thought this was a clever thing to do. No. We now deal with brush professionally. Your rug's about to show up in the next slide. Boom, there's your rug. Sort of. You don't want the little black spots on it, but the fact is, There's a Tibetan rug that's done with that dyeing that happens with drippy thing. And so you knot left to right, which is why the stria always goes left to right. Now, for extra credit, I will tell you, you can make the stria go the other way. All you do is you turn the rug, so you have a short, fat rug. And that's the kind of thing that a good salesperson tells you. They don't say, oh, you can't do that, the abrash must go left to right. They say, oh, we'll turn the rug. In the same way, it's much faster to make a runner sideways, because you have 50 people weaving 3 feet versus 3 people weaving 50 feet. Here is abrash. This is one of the most famous rugs out there. This is the most beautiful, totally natural abrash. Never happens, which is why this rug is so expensive. This is totally faked abrash. And it's a beautiful thing. Somebody planted that in there. There's an artist. They figured it out. No one gets too freaked out about it, about where it goes exactly, but that's the beauty of it. Each rug's slightly different. But this one is a planned abrash. Okay, something is happening that doesn't like changing slides to me now.
I'll have to get you a clicker next time.
No, it's. I'm trying to figure out why it's so mad. There we go. Yay. Okay, washing. This is really fun if you're ever there, because you can sort of see it there. See those big spade things? They are sharp. And those guys just sail into these rugs. Now, your rug gets smoother, softer, and brighter. And in Nepal, when they wash this, it sort of blends the color, which is why it magically has, it doesn't bleed. Well, it does bleed, but you don't think of it as bleeding. It just magically, all the colors seem to have a little bit of each other in them. It's just, it's a much softer, it's the reverse of this, where every color is so separated out. Well, they do that by doing this washing thing. And when we tell you that the rug is stuck in washing because it's raining out, that's because these things are literally done, see that's outside. These are done outside, they're dried outside. And if it rains a lot, your rug gets rained on. And they consider that a part of the process, and it's a great thing, but it means it takes a little bit longer to dry. But the smoothness and the abrasion, just like if you think of any textile where you rub your hands, it's always a little smoother there. That's what these guys are doing. It also takes out any extra fuzz. It's a great thing. Let's see, I think that's about it for that, because I bet I'm getting to. Oh, here's the cleaning spades. Now, if one wants to get into the sort of who's better than who thing, if you spade pushing away from you, they know you are an amazing person, because this is how you rip a rug in 2 minutes. You dig that corner in it and just totally destroys what someone spent months making. Everybody else pulls the spade towards them. So that's why I like this, because I went and watched this thing and somebody explained this whole thing. Because one year, Stark let me bicycle across Northwest India so I could see all this stuff in person. No, they didn't pay for it, so no, none of your rug money went to keep
Those are metal though, right? So they are very, very.
Oh, they're like knives. These things are truly knives, because one of their goals is, okay, I don't think people use metal spatulas anymore because of your Silverstone or something, but they have a point on them. They're sort of softened a little bit, but they really want to scrape. And if you put it on Silverstone, it will take off the Silverstone. Those things are just giant versions of them with sharp, right angles on them. They're kind of amazing, but to watch them do it is so fast, and to see what happens when you fill a rug and flush it instantly. Because now your hair gets darker when it gets wet. Well, these rugs go in and out of that in 2 seconds, because as the track patterns, then the rug water seeps back in. It's kind of wild. This is one beautiful piece of artwork. And we're going to get to artwork very slightly, but one of the best things about dealing with high-end decorating is the fact that you get to do this sort of thing. Somebody will design this for you. They will make your vision come true, because that really is the point. Okay, this is clipping. Yes, this is how it's done. The whole rug has somebody do this to it.
Hand.
And
there are machines.
nope, this is not done with this thing. Now I'll show you the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. See this thing? See this pattern?
Yeah.
That is 100% made with those little scissors.
Wow.
This is not tufted that way. This thing starts out as a dead flat velvet. And one of the beauties of it is, it means when you see the repeat, you don't see a repeat as much. It's a little bit different. So it's sort of like looking at a repeat that someone hand paints on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
But these people with these scissors are unbelievable.
Wow.
That's why when we say sometimes it's gonna take a while. That's why. This is why it's taking a while for the rug to arrive.
Oh, I know what I was also going to tell you. So, why is my rug taking forever? It's being made in Jaipur. I know, but it's summer. Yes, it's summer. Do you understand that in Jaipur, in summer, it's 130 degrees during the day, and nobody's hands can grip anything. So maybe from 2 to 3:30 in the morning, it's cool enough. So all we have is 1 hour and a half to weave your rug. So that's why it's late. So we are not. This is not. Ooh, did I skip something?
Yeah, that was a really cool.
Yes, there's some really good ones in here.
That one.
Yes. Okay, so that's the next one. Okay.
I went back too many.
We got. I will learn this thing eventually.
Stop.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay, this is back to the art. Okay, now this happens to be a stairway. We all know it's Stark because it belongs to ownership, but it is so successful, this design, that it gets put everywhere. And one of the things you get from Stark is a picture of the image. Everyone gets that thing spexy, but you know what? What you don't get is this image. Now, the difference between them is it what it looks like when a plane is flying over, so it has to cut out all the risers, which is why you get something, oops, why does it suddenly shift over? Well, that's because on that riser, it went from here to there. So somebody's bothered to figure, there's the most extreme one. And I used to know where it was. I think it's here. See the difference between those 2 points? That's a big, it's a big difference. But we all figure that out. That's an amazing thing. And this is really amazing. Let's take your U-turn runner and not just say, oh, we'll put the carpet there and we'll cut it out. No, let's make it exactly. And this, by the way, is made in that lovely hand tufting, because hand tufting is done on the canvas. It's not washed. It is the size it is. If you get a 25-foot rug and it's off by 1 inch, you think, ugh, the canvas must have stretched. But a hand-knotted rug, to get the repeat to actually fit with the border, it could be 18 inches longer, because back to that, you had a good day and a bad day, or you knotting tighter. Anyway, this is, I can't think of a better thing that says why you come to a great place and have them help you envision, because just sort of saying it to Joe Schmo, who seems like they have a good idea and sketches something up, is not the same as getting this. Okay. We get asked about child labor all the time. These things are made in cultures in homes. This is why we can't tell you what's happening with them often, because somebody has to drive. They have to ride their donkey, they have to ride their bicycle, whatever they can do, because I did this, out to get to these places, and you get to somebody's house, and it's really a weaving shed that happens to have sort of sleeping and eating around it. And everybody participates. There are no children in their sense, because they get married at 14, 15, so it's a very different society. But the fact is little kids, what anybody call little kids, yeah, they're playing with yarn and throwing it around and doing all that stuff. They might make little yarn balls, but they're not making anything. The kids who are 7, 8 are learning how to spin. It's what they do. They are not missing soccer in the afternoon or extra credit AP physics. At the other end of the scale, what do you do with the people who can't do all the knots all day, but have tremendous skill? You put them to work finishing the rugs. This is a cradle-to-grave industry. And it's not an abusive one, because this happened long before the West showed up to demand more rugs. And it's kind of amazing to watch. And I love this picture. It was also taken by the girl who took the other one, the woman who took the other one. But this is the edge of a rug clipped off. That's all those famous warps. And those are those famous wefts. No, Those are the wefts and that's the warp. I'm being very bad here. No one caught me. And he is stitching it tight before they do the hand surgery on it. So. Okay. I will not ask you, but I took one of these pictures. So this is actually how your stuff gets to you.
Wow.
You have to understand where this is made. Mine is at least wrapped. This one's a little scary, and that one's just funny. I did not take the picture of the 4 guys on one motorcycle holding a rug over their heads as they went down the street. These people, this is, you just do what you do to get it to market because you want this thing out of your house so you can have another one in. And you pray that somebody needs a rug that's the size of your loom because you don't have a 25-foot loom. You have a 15-foot loom. It's the biggest one you put in a house.
That's why the loom sizes are always different.
The loom sizes are always different, and the only thing I can tell you is if you can make it less than 16, your odds are much better. There are tons of looms that are 16 feet and less, which is why we make stuff 15 because it's a little bit less tight on the loom. 16, over 16, we got to wait for a loom, which is why.
Or they build one, right? They build
well,
one.
we build one if they don't have one because they want the order, but you're then got to wait for somebody to build one. It doesn't happen. This is not, you know, let's go down to Home Depot and buy the kit. And these rugs weigh a lot, so you got to have serious stuff going on. And they're built into the house. I mean, they're part of the structure, holds them up. Okay. If you want to read this, you're welcome to read it. It's kind of funny and nice. But what causes weaves to create the design? Humans. It's going to be a little bit different. We have taste, we have blah, blah, blah. We also have screw-ups and magical moments where we do things really, really wrong or really, really right, and that's thing in a nutshell. Okay. Now you've got to have some version of this at your home, which is, I imagine, Prince and the Tiger, and I got the poor lost boy and the pussycat. There's a very good one showing a yacht, and then there's somebody holding their iron over the ocean because the iron looks just like the yacht.
Or is there a horse or something?
Yes, there's also a horse that has 3 legs. So, my general thing is to say to a client to put the on down. I will show you things at a price point. If you're truly locked by a price point, let's do that. But you've come to me to ask about something, which means you're automatically saying you have some discretion here. So how far do you want to take this that you want to go? Because you're going to drag yourself into that area, and believe me, they always drag themselves into that area because people come out, I don't want to say anything over $6,000. Well, here they all are. Why aren't you showing me anything nice? Because you said only $6,000. Well, we can make it more. How much? Well, how much more would it take? Twice, 3 times. Okay. Boom. Or they'll say, this is not for me, and they'll leave, and then they'll go to 6 other showrooms where you can't do it also. I hate the people who leave, though, because I've educated them, and somebody else gets to close the deal. That I really don't like.
True. So true.
But anyway, here we go. This is, we don't say, I mean, we'll say bye, please, because this rug speaks to me. It looks so good with you. But I don't do lie to you to buy, because then you'll never see me again. And my goal is to have you buy 5 rugs from me, not one really expensive one or overpriced one. Okay, this is all about the great people at Stark, and none of the people in the picture still works for Stark. But, but the fact is this is the kind of stuff we do. We will put the rug under your furniture. We will sit there with 10,000 people figuring out how to do it with this paint pot thing. We will please set realistic expectations. Tell them you don't know how long it's going to be and not because you don't want to. And when they say that the sample is going to come, because I just had this problem, when they say the sample is going to be 6 to 8 weeks and you don't ask anything, so you figure, let's tell the client 6 to 7 weeks because that's better. And then you find out that The sample takes 6 to 8 weeks, but it takes 2 weeks to get the product there, to get it, and 2 weeks home, and now you have somebody waiting 5 weeks. And if you want to talk about an angry person, they've had 5 weeks where they think they're going to get this thing that they paid, they think too much for. Not good. Set realistic, achievable expectations. Leverage Stark's expertise, honestly. I play bad cop all the time with people. People sell stuff that can't be delivered, and let's drag Tim in to explain. And I do. Didn't we cover?
You skipped.
It just
skipped.
It did. Did it skip one also?
Without you even touching it.
That's me. Flying hands.
There you go.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so this. We'll learn this eventually. There we go. Okay, Chad has a video. It's now wildly out of date, but it's kind of fun, and you can find it on YouTube. Now do this thing. Thank you. Okay, 10 things to know about handmade rugs. I can go through them all, but I think you all know them. The answer is you're talking about knots. You're talking about how things are made. You're learning enough to say, I'm not going to be bamboozled. When someone shows me these 2 rugs, I'm going to say, I know there's a difference. Maybe it's not a huge difference because those are picked because they're so close. You know, I could tell someone, okay, here's your shady salesperson. This, mind you, is the more expensive rug. So, I have this lovely $50,000 rug, but God, the artwork's kind of terrible. Wait, I'm trying to make this work the wrong way. This is a lovely $25,000 rug, because the numbers get too silly the other way, and it's actually $25,000. And but geez, you know, it's so overpriced. And if we go to this other mill, we can make this beautiful one. It's a little bit more, but it's so much better. This one's $40,000. And they think, $15,000, prettier rug, blah, blah, blah. Okay, this rug is half of what this one is. So I've just done a sketchy thing to you as a rug salesperson. You need to know, that's what this whole thing is about, is need to know something. The other famous thing is, because we work at a Stark to your advantage, how much is this per square yard? Well, I can tell you anything, so long as I divide the final total up. But if you come in here and tell me, well, Burbank next door told me this was $100, I can tell you it's, oh, I sell it to you for 70. I just sell you a lot more units because you never asked how many units. So get a full quote. Make sure it tells you whether they're taking the stuff out of your house. You get to a house, you're delivering stuff, you're not there because this is how design works these days. Designer's never there when it's delivered. And the client's like, what do you mean they're not taking my old rug? What am I going to do with my old rug? Make sure the service is going to do it. That's part of handmade rug. It's not really part of this lecture, but it is. Now, can I take questions from the audience?
The word handmade, sometimes you always assume handmade is more expensive. You see some things that are very inexpensive and they say handmade rug. So
Depends how many hands and for how long.
oh, so it's like a not very well done handmade rug. I got it.
Or
I mean,
looser knot
Yeah,
count
there's
versus
looser-
tighter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that
Materials
one,
that were used.
the problem with the knot count thing is that it's not always true because the knot count here is, where do I have another rug?
Is it one of the?
Okay, so let's have 3 rugs here. Okay, this one is wildly more expensive than any of them because it's like twice as many knots. You can just look at the back of this and you see the size of the knots, and then you look at this and you see the size of these knots. So it takes somebody 3 times as long to make this one. Plus it happens to be made in, oh, there's a little wool in it. It's 85% silk.
Yeah.
And this thing has been spaded to death. This thing started looking like a very nice rug, and someone has spaded it to death so it looks like a $400,000 antique. These are our antiques reimagined, that they are heaven.
So they spade them like you know when you beat up jeans? Like
It's exactly the same thing. It's
Distressed.
just like
Distressed,
distressed jeans.
Oh, I got it.
We just
So-
don't stick them in a wash machine. You're running this so I don't go over time.
Okay. Oh, no.
Okay.
I'm just looking at that rug. That's amazing that it looks
Yeah.
aged like that.
Yep. Now,
So you can age it.
it's truly wonderful. Let's look at these two because they are technically the same knot.
Yeah.
There is more knots in this than this by far. This is our Ashley Stark engineered to show the most pattern, the most complexity with the least knots. This is a science project when they do this. They have a plan. This is what we want. Now, what's it called, Django? That thing where you pull wood out of stuff? Okay, this is Django. How many knots can we pull out of it while it still looks the same?
Ah.
That's value engineering.
It's value engineering. And it's an amazing line. Now, you can't expect, the easy one to say in New York is we have Zara sitting next door and we have Chanel 3 blocks away. And obviously the Chanel tweed is a little more expensive than the Zara one. One of them's gonna look fabulous in 2070 and go to the Met. The other one ain't gonna make it more than about 3.5 seasons, but you're not wearing it more than 3.5 seasons because you're tired of it by then. What do you want?
Right.
You know, this rug is not for everybody, but it's an amazing thing. I mean, I love all my children. There's not one rug I don't like. They're just different. You know, here's my fraternal twins.
Right.
It's true.
This one's a bit bigger and fluffier, and this one's actually real. You know, you're gonna roll this thing up and it technically could be around in 300 years. This is a tufted rug, and the backings start to go after about 70 years, so you're not gonna worry about it. Nobody has these rugs by the time they wear out. I just made, if you go to the Frick, they have a giant gallery, and I just made a 33.9 by 98-foot rug, green rug for that thing.
Wow.
And
That's awesome.
the last one had 1 million walkers, over 1 million walkers, because they know how many people go in there, and everybody goes into that gallery. And it had been there since 2002. So, and we made it in this construction. I mean, we made it very tight, and you had me on the project, so I had to sort of mess with the greens, so it's 3 different greens, so it looks right and it doesn't overshadow the paintings, which is the kind of thing you need to worry about. But what else can I tell you about these guys?
So you went to one that lasted 70 years instead of 300 years.
There's a logic for everything is all I'm saying. You know, do I sell $350,000 staircases? Yes. Do I also sell $800 seagrass mats? Yes. Am I snotty about the $800 mats? No. Don't worry me about them and ask 65,000 questions like the very fancy stairs. But I'm happy. We all have to, you know, some people eat this, some people eat that.
Can you just quickly, because I know we're running out of time.
Please.
Viscose. Like, why is it in so many rugs, and especially when, you know, we've referenced that it's a questionable.
There's people who say they will not use it. Now, if you will not use viscose.
Where does it come from? Like, what is it? You said sawdust.
It's like rayons, right?
Is that UK?
Yes, it comes from Ginger Rogers' dancing dresses. In the late 20s and 30s, they invented faux silk. They took the chemical compounds that were worm spit and worm guts, and they took the chemical compounds that were mulberry leaves, because if you don't know this, they only eat one type of leaf. You can't give them some other type of leaf. That makes silk. So they took all these chemicals, they threw them all together, they added a polymer, oil, and they mixed it all up, and they came up with this fiber, and they extruded it, and it's called rayon, which is viscose, which is fibron, there's a bunch of different names for it. But they're all the same thing, they're synthetic silk. And they started out with it being done with sawdust because there was so much of it, and it was so easy. And if you're putting it in your clothes, which is why when anyone says you can't put water on a viscose clothes, viscose rug, I'm like, have you ever washed a viscose shirt? You can do this. Water does not destroy viscose. What happens here? It has to do with what else you've done to the fiber. Whether it's been processed to have that color as it's extruded, which is what usually happens with clothing, or whether you take that naked fiber and you throw dye in it, which is what happens with rugs, which means the surface is porous, which means anything can get into it. Not so great. Viscose also takes light in and bounces it out. Silk bounces it off the top. So if you get a silk rug, you have something that is like mint green on one side and forest green on the other. A viscose rug will be a blend of those across because it shatters the light inside it. Viscose is going to be here for a while because it does a thing. It does a light thing that other things don't do. It's not a huge savings. It's not like it's a quarter of the price of silk. It's something like, I don't know, 80% or something. And you don't want the sawdust kinds. You don't want art silk, probably, and you don't want viscose. But tencel, bamboo, banana, anybody who's bought really nice underwear knows that banana silk is a pretty fabulous thing to have in undergarments.
Is Modell the same stuff?
It is, but I think Modell has a stretch component to it.
Oh.
I'm not such a
'Cause that's
fiber
in
person,
everything now.
but I swear Modell has, because they can only copyright them with a brand name if they've done something else to them. So, but viscose, I believe in. We have it still in some rugs in medium colors or in flexive white. Why do we have polyester sitting in rugs? We go, oh, polyester in rugs. Well, because it gets you true white in that rug, but it doesn't have the problems of viscose, and it's soft. And everyone now comes to me. You would think I would have no skin because I grew up in a house with wool rugs. Everyone's like, I can't have my children on wool rugs. I grew up on them just fine. We have to put in viscose, which is soft. It's the easiest thing to blend. I'm not going to turn it over, but I guarantee you that thing is 99% viscose, and it's so soft. You're going to keep viscose for that reason. It's hard to seam. It will occasionally water spot. It's really great when it's in splotchy rugs, because what do you care?
It fluffs up. That stuff.
It's a rayon, it technically doesn't. Only wool technically comes up. What they do that's a very tricky thing, we used to have a very famous product called Ebb and Flow. Because rayon doesn't fluff up. And so what you do is you build a bunch of loops of wool and you shoot viscose through them on top of them so that when the whole thing mashes down, you wash the rug and the wool comes back up, lifts up the... So, you lift it up.
Amazing.
But other than that, you just have plastic. You have a synthetic, and synthetics are sure. Hey, Donna. Come on in. Anyway, what else? What's a final question? I really appreciate all the Instagram watchers being here. Please come visit Denise's amazing office and come for the next one because you can't see over here, but there is the most amazing food made.
I'll move it, wait a minute.
It's great. Apparently there's a
Jealous?
wonderful
Are
holiday
you
party
jealous?
happening. There's regular lectures happening here, and Maria and I would love to see you in New York. We deal with obviously experienced designers. We've done this for 85, 95 years, something like that. But we also deal with people who just walk in the door. And we try and help you and try and get you not too confused. And we try and get the rug you want for your home. And watch us on Reels because I do really good Reels for Star.
That was unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
I mean, oh my God, who knew that there's so many variations? So I'm glad that there isn't a test because, you know, I was trying to remember, and so, but it's great to have you as a resource. Thank you so much, everybody. And you can ask Tim any more questions after, and please have some more food.
You deserve it. You
Thanks
deserve
again.
it.
I deserve water because standing
Thank you,
behind
everyone.
you
How great was this?
is the
Hi,
woman I'm
everybody.
about
Oh
to
my
go do
God, we
90
have so
minutes
many
of
wonderful
ballroom.
people here. Please come and join us one time, okay? I'm going to wave to all of you.
No, Donna
And
I do
if
the
you missed
country
anything,
version of
this will
ballroom, and
be
we are in the World
taped,
Championships. We are
and
the
you
top
can
4
see it from the
seeds.
beginning. All right.
That's
See you
exciting.
soon.
Yeah, in
Bye.
January 3rd.
Go.
Where do you
That's
go in the
exciting.
city?
So,